In early 2014, the seemingly ordinary routine of a small town hid secrets that would make any sensitive soul shudder. Emily, a dedicated 7th grade student, always observed the world from the sidelines of the school's more prestigious circles. Her frankness was captivating, though she wasn't considered part of the popular kids. Paradoxically, she was welcome among them, perhaps out of friendliness, perhaps pure coincidence. She could never define it. The group revolved around Laura, the newly arrived student, whose features drew attention and caused sighs in almost every hallway. Laura, elegant and self-assured, had George as her boyfriend, the school's gravitational center, young, handsome, popular, and, above all, mysteriously prosperous. George exuded an aura that intrigued Emily. Always dressed in designer clothes, leather jackets, expensive boots, he was the only one in the group with a gleaming sports motorcycle in the sunny parking lot. He seemed like a rich kid, but everyone knew he wasn't. He lived with his mother in a modest house, without ostentation. Even so, he never lacked money. He distributed sweets, organized private parties, rented clubs for unforgettable afternoons. Few questioned how a public school student could afford all these luxuries. Amidst smiles, no one wanted to know where so much came from. However, there were other signs. George avoided religious topics, even mocked them. He never uttered the name Jesus. There was an uneasiness in his eyes, especially in unguarded moments when he realized he was being observed. Behind every joke, something haunted that gaze, Emily always thought. Don't forget, subscribe now. Have you ever imagined discovering too late that someone close to you harbors a dark pact? Your participation in the comments can help more people not to ignore silent signs. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss these stories. The school environment was a microcosm of appearances. Even the teachers, attentive to George's exemplary behavior, rarely asked uncomfortable questions. His charm disguised everything, charm and money, of course. There were rumors, always discreet, about alleged involvement with drugs. Perhaps that would justify such a privileged life. Emily, although not entirely believing it, couldn't close her eyes to so many coincidences. Everything forbidden seemed to become more tempting, and the group always allowed themselves some small extravagances when George paid. What no one imagined was that George himself carried a secret darker than mere illicit dealings. The atmosphere around him changed almost imperceptibly. He was always alert, eyes darting to the corners, as if listening to voices no one else heard. Then, one almost mundane afternoon, everything was revealed. George, withered and inexplicably apathetic, gathered Emily and some closest friends during recess. He told them he needed to talk about something serious, asking for absolute secrecy. His tone was grave. He asked that, if they doubted, at least they wouldn't mock what he would say next. "I made a pact," he began, letting the words hang in the heavy air. George spoke bluntly. He was part of a cult, one of those that demanded cruel rituals, ingestion of blood, and worship of entities he preferred not to detail. His blessings, the money, the motorcycle, the clothes, came from this agreement, from this worship of the forbidden. And now, tired and regretful, he wanted out. The problem, he knew the price of rebellion would be extremely high. The others could barely absorb it. Emily, astonished, felt her skin prickle. There was no humor at all. The fear in his eyes was real. Subsequently, George changed visibly. His previously bright face lost all youthful traces. Deep, dark circles appeared, and a rare despondency for someone so young. He avoided contact, fled company, and curious glances. He even broke up with Laura, saying he wasn't well enough to continue. The school, such a small and open environment, began to whisper in the corners of the hallways. Everyone noticed. something sinister loomed over that sudden silence. The space George occupied turned into a shadow. Emily felt chills seeing him wander alone, consumed by fear, looking back as if afraid of being followed by something invisible. Teachers commented on his spiritual disappearance. Friends began to keep their distance. The accident, or rather, the event, broke any fear, transforming it into grief. George disappeared for a few days. Upon returning from a grief trip, Emily found the traditional downtown funeral home crowded. There was a mourning band attached to the school gates. The news spread quickly. George was dead. A mix of shock and disbelief ran through everyone. Those who knew him or had only heard of him refused to believe. The accounts of those who were there were unequivocal. George had committed suicide, driving his new motorcycle into a tree, breaking his neck on impact. It wasn't an accident, they repeated. It was a choice. Shortly after, a letter published, allegedly left by George, further fueled the school community's unease. He asked his mother for forgiveness, declared his love, and expressed regret. He wished he had had the chance to go back in time and avoid everything from the beginning. He explained that he had broken the pact and since then suffered constant persecutions. He saw shadows, heard whispers, was woken night after night by evil presences. He had no peace, couldn't sleep, felt consumed by fear. He even begged for help, but for him, it was already too late. His suicide became a painful warning for everyone. Emily recalls every detail of the collective grief. The shattered friendships, the empty gazes in the hallways, the unanswered questions. The story quickly became taboo, a secret, an episode everyone preferred to suppress. But even by stifling the subject, it was impossible to escape the impact. Parties, laughter, birthday celebrations, everything became less vibrant. The silent ghost of the pact hovered as a warning to the next generation. Gradually, school life resumed, but the void left by George's departure weighed on the atmosphere. Teachers and parents warned about the dangers of seeking shortcuts and easy benefits. Meetings, lectures, psychologists, the school sought to explain the inexplicable to its community. Few had the courage to touch upon the real origin of those losses. Others tried to rationalize, blaming bad company or the excessive curiosity of youth. Years later, Emily frequently remembers this dark chapter. She became more attentive to the behavior of those close to her, to the subtleties of those who carry guilt and fear. She hesitates to get too close to easy promises or tempting vices. Little by little, Emily learned to transform fear into discernment. George's name remains between the lines of what is never said. He became a symbol, a discreet warning about the dangers of the unknown, about irreversible costs, and the invisible horrors in the most seductive choices. George's outcome is more than an isolated tragedy. It is a cruel reminder that there is no easy wealth, no power without a price. Pacts with the unknown lead to irreversible consequences, far beyond what can be measured in money or status. The story speaks of loss, but also of reflection. Those who seek shortcuts to happiness may find shortcuts to the abyss. If this story has reached you, don't walk away in silence. Leave your comment, share experiences, and subscribe to follow other accounts where fear walks hand in hand with promises of the impossible. The next warning might be the one that saves someone.